What's up YouTube, it's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back again with another video. Now, not too long ago I made a video stating the 4 most underrated players in the NBA, and a lot of people had some problems with that list simply because they were missing a few players. Now, out of the 2 players that I supposedly missed, there were 2 names that kept popping up. One was Mike Conley, and I tried to give Mike Conley some credit, put him in the thumbnail, but realistically speaking, I mean, he just got a max contract, so he's not that underrated anymore. And 2 was Damian Lillard. Now, Lillard was initially in the list itself, but crazy enough, when it got time for me to start recording the actual video, I ended up spending like 10 minutes talking about Damian Lillard because that's how underrated he is, and it wouldn't be doing him any justice if I put his name in the list with all those other players, because to be completely honest with you all, Damian Lillard is probably more underrated than you actually believe. And that's why I'm making this video right here. I'm making a video to solely show people how underrated Damian Lillard is. And because of that, let's get right into the video. Here are 4 reasons why Damian Lillard is one of the most underrated players of all time. Now first, let's talk about the awards and the accolades that Damian Lillard has, quite frankly, been snubbed on. Now obviously this past season Damian Lillard got snubbed on making the All-Star game, but let's take it back a few years before that. See, back in the 2014 season, Damian Lillard was in his 2nd year and fresh off of the Rookie of the Year award. Not only that, in his 2nd year he was going into the All-Star weekend being an All-Star and also being part of the Rising Star Challenge. But for Damian Lillard, that just wasn't enough, because he also participated in the slam dunk contest, the 3-point contest, and the skills challenge, which means that Damian Lillard actually participated in all 5 events in All-Star Weekend, which has never been done before. So you would think for somebody that took the time out and actually wanted to compete All-Star Weekend that we would show him some love. I mean, for God's sake, we literally begged LeBron to be part of a dunk contest and he still hasn't done it. So you would think that Damian Lillard should just be a shoo-in to be an All-Star every single year that he plays reasonably good. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. See, in the next season, in the 2015 All-Star games, Damian Lillard got snubbed. Now, I know a lot of people believe that he made the team, and he actually did. Technically, he did. But what happened in the original voting, he didn't make the list. And actually, the only reason why he even was on the All-Star game in the 2015 season is simply because Blake Griffin got hurt. So technically speaking, he got snubbed not once, but twice, and actually 2 years in a row. Now, a lot of people make the argument in this year that he probably actually didn't get snubbed. It was just that many great backcourt players. And to be completely honest with you, you can actually make that argument. I mean, the weakest backcourt player in the All-Star game for the West was probably either Klay Thompson or James Harden. So again, it's very understandable that he might not have made the All-Star game. But here's how I'm going to prove that Damian Lillard is extremely underrated. So when you take the time out and you look at the fan voting, you know, the actual votes that the fans get to have to decide who's going to be in a starting 5, that's where things just get completely out of hand. In this year's All-Star voting, Damian Lillard collected 158,360 All-Star votes, which was the 10th most votes in the backcourt for the Western Conference, which means that he got less votes than Andre Iguodala, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, and here are my favorites. He got less votes than Rajon Rondo and Derrick Rose. So for all those people who claim in my overrated video that Rondo nor Derrick Rose is overrated, please stop. So again, you're telling me that more people believe that Andre Iguodala or Manu Ginobili deserve to be an All-Star before Damian Lillard. That is by far the most craziest thing in the world. But crazy enough, it doesn't even stop there, because when you take the time out and look at how many votes he got in the MVP race, it's ridiculous how dramatically underrated Damian Lillard is. Now in the MVP voting, I'm not suggesting that he should have got first place or anything, and I'm not even suggesting that he should have been in the top 3 in the MVP race, but I believe that he should have been higher than the 8th place in the MVP race. But not only was he in the 8th place, but Draymond Green actually ended up getting more votes than Damian Lillard, and Draymond finished 7th in the MVP race. Now again, Draymond is a great player, but I don't know how people determine who should be an MVP or who shouldn't be an MVP, but Jesus Christ, are we serious? What makes it even worse, out of 131 people who vote for the MVP, only 14 people decided that Damian Lillard was good enough to receive some recognition in the MVP race. So even if you want to make the argument that Damian Lillard should not have made the All-Star game just because how talented the backcourt is in the Western Conference, I mean, I think we all should have some understanding that he should have received way more votes than that in the All-Star game, and also he probably should have received way more votes than he did in the MVP race. The next thing we're going to talk about is his stats, his statistics, the numbers that he put up in the last season. Last year, Damian Lillard averaged 25 points, almost 7 assists, 4 rebounds, nearly a steal, shooting 42% from the field, 37% from 3, and shooting 89% from the free throw line. Now, those are incredible numbers, and I think a lot of people may take for granted how hard it is for a young player to come in the NBA and within their 4 years in the league that they average 25 points along with 6 assists. To prove to you how rare this is, let's go back a little bit and let's see how many players in their first 4 years in the NBA achieved this feat. Derrick Rose did it back in his MVP year. LeBron James did it 3 times out of his first 4 years in the league. Dwayne Wade did it 2 times in his first 4 years in the NBA. But after that, we have to go all the way back to the 70s, where players like Tiny Archibald and Pete Maravich did it. And then you had to go back even further than that, and Oscar Robertson, of course, did it his first 4 years. But outside of that, there's no other players. Damian Lillard literally accomplished something that normally takes players years to accomplish. Putting up 25 points and 6 assists may seem routine for certain players like James Harden and Kobe Bryant and so on and so forth, but again, let's recognize that it took them a very long time to get to that point. I mean, he's literally putting his name in conversations with LeBron James and Oscar Robertson. I mean, that alone should prove to you how great of a player he is. And on top of that, you can make a huge argument that he could have been doing this for a very long time now. I mean, if you know anything about Damian Lillard and the Portland Trail Blazers, we can make a huge argument that he's been sacrificing numbers up until this point because he wanted to make sure he fit in the system when LaMarcus Aldridge was there. But now since Aldridge is gone, he's actually doing things again that not too many players have ever done. And speaking of LaMarcus Aldridge leaving, that takes us to our next point. Now I'm going to be quick with this because I believe this is pretty obvious. After last year's offseason, LaMarcus Aldridge ended up leaving because, quite frankly, he got tired of losing in Portland. So he decided to take his talent somewhere else, which basically tempted Portland to just start all the way over and rebuild around Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. In the 2014-2015 season, this is what the roster looked like. The starting 5 plus a few players coming off the bench. Damian Lillard at point, Wes Matthews, Nicholas Batum, LaMarcus Aldridge, Robin Lopez, Steve Blake, McCollum, and Chris Kaman. Translate to what the year we just saw from them. You have a roster that has Damian Lillard at point, CJ McCollum, Al-Farouq Aminu, Ed Davis, Plumlee, Miles Leonard, Crabbe, Henderson, and Mo Harkless. Now, I think it wasn't that much of a stretch in the beginning of the season for anybody to believe that that team would have made the playoffs. If you go back and you look at multiple articles, everybody believed that they were going to take a huge step back and be lucky if they even made the playoffs, but a lot of people thought that that was a lottery team. And to be completely honest with you, I underestimated Damian Lillard in his greatness and also expected him to lead a team to around 30 to 35 wins. But crazy enough, Damian Lillard continues to exceed expectations, and he took a team that should have been in the lottery. I mean, we can seriously look at that team, and everybody expected that team to not make the playoffs and arguably make the lottery, and still made them a playoff contender. Not only a contender, but actually in the 5th seed in the Western Conference. And the last year that LaMarcus Aldridge was there, they won 51 games, but crazy enough, last year they won 44. So again, we're talking about just 7 games that was lost. That's it. So regardless if you believe that it's the development of CJ McCollum or the development of Mason Plumlee, I think Damian Lillard should receive a lot of credit because I don't think a lot of people expected him to do this. And again, we were underestimating him. I mean, honestly, if you put anybody else on that team, I think we would have given them a very clear and reasonable excuse if they didn't perform up to expectations. But the fact that Damian Lillard not only met expectations but exceeded them should again be noticed. Now for this last point that I'm trying to make, I need everybody to be a little bit more open-minded because what I'm about to say may be a little bit controversial. A few months ago, while Portland and Golden State Warriors were going back and forth in the playoffs, there were some scouts that were interviewed by Colin Cowherd, and they said a few things about Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry that actually made me think very, very thoroughly about where Damian Lillard was in his career. Now, right now I'm going to quote them, so please don't act as if like this is my own sentiment. But they said, the sentiment behind the scene is that Lillard would do exactly what Steph does. Now, to put it in context, they were talking about the comparison between Damian Lillard and Stephen Curry, especially after that great game that they had. I can't remember which game it was in the series, but that game where Damian Lillard put up like 51 points. And after the game, a lot of people behind the scenes, quote unquote, was comparing Stephen Curry to Damian Lillard and how far Lillard has came since he first entered the league. And after hearing that quote, I actually thought about it for a second, and I don't completely agree with him, but I understand where they're coming from. Not only that, I mean, if we really want to talk about comparing Damian Lillard to a slew of other players, I mean, honestly, what Damian Lillard is doing within the first 4 years of his career, like I said before, it takes certain players multiple years. So I find it crazy when people decide that they want to compare Damian Lillard to Stephen Curry, James Harden, or even Russell Westbrook. And again, those players have been in the league for like 7 going on 8 years. Damian Lillard has only been in the league for 4 years. And so I don't think people thoroughly understand how incredible that is. We're literally talking about somebody who's been in the league literally half the time his competition is, and he's already on their level. But furthermore, even if you want to compare Damian Lillard to what he's doing right now to certain players that are roughly around the same age as he is and has the same experience, such as Kyrie Irving, I think that a lot of people would believe that Kyrie Irving is a better player than Damian Lillard, and I don't necessarily believe that's true, but even if it is true, I don't think it's as clear cut as a lot of people may make it seem. Now again, Damian Lillard doesn't have the accolades and the accomplishments that Kyrie has, but a lot of that can just be chalked up to the fact that Kyrie plays in the East and plays on a team with LeBron. So of course with the All-Star games, and of course he just won a championship, that was way more easier for Kyrie to accomplish than Damian Lillard. But if we want to talk about numbers and when we talk about the impact that their play had on their team, I don't necessarily believe that Kyrie Irving would have been able to accomplish what Dame had accomplished so early into his career. And again, this can be said about a slew of other players in the NBA right now. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is not necessarily because Damian Lillard is one of the most overrated players of all time. I over-exaggerated in the title, and I'm sorry for that, but I do want to make this very clear. My favorite player of all time that didn't play for the Lakers, of course, is Chris Webber. Chris Webber was a great power forward. He used to rebound extremely well, had a great arsenal on the offensive end, great passer, ran the fast break extremely well for a big, and crazy enough, he doesn't get the type of recognition that he deserves. And a lot of that just has to simply do with the fact that he played at a point in time where other great power forwards played. You had Kevin Garnett, Dirk Nowitzki, and Tim Duncan. So even though he was doing great things and setting records and doing great things for his own organization and his team, making strides in the playoffs, setting franchise records, all of that went unnoticed because he played at a point in time when there were other better players at his position. And now a few years removed from his career, I don't think people thoroughly respect and understood the impact that Chris Webber had on the game. And crazy enough, I can easily see Damian Lillard falling under that exact same umbrella. Because as long as players such as Chris Paul, Russell Westbrook, and Stephen Curry are in the Western Conference, Damian Lillard is going to be overshadowed. And crazy enough, if this continues to go on like this for the remaining of his career, he might actually end his career as being one of the most underrated players of all time. So that's the reason why I'm bringing this up. If you compare Damian Lillard and what he's doing today, what he just did in the last season, you don't even have to go back through NBA history. Just look at what players are doing right now, how long it took Stephen Curry to put up 25 points, how long it took certain players to put up 25 points on nearly 7 assists. I mean, honestly, I don't even know how many players are really doing that in the NBA, and even if they are doing it right now in the NBA, how long did it take them to accomplish that? And so hopefully when you take the time out and you be open and honest with yourself, I think you can come to the conclusion that Damian Lillard is probably way better than what we all recognize him as. So with that being said, everybody, there you have it. 4 reasons why Damian Lillard might end up being one of the most underrated players of all time. I know I kind of, I went a little bit over the top with the whole title, but I do believe that Damian Lillard is a great player, and I really and truly hope he receives the recognition, because after I saw the All-Star votes, I mean, Jesus Christ, you're telling me that many more people believe that Derrick Rose and Rondo deserves to be an All-Star over Damian Lillard. Come on, people, let's be honest now, come on. But with all that being said, I thank you all for watching the video. I thank y'all for supporting the channel. Continue to share the videos. We've already passed 10 and 15K. And you know what? I was going to leave the hashtag roll to 20K, but at the pace that I'm moving at this point, we might as well just make it 50K. So hashtag roll to 50K, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.